Good and good morning, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Welcome back once again to the weekly Sunday Pūjā in Unison and Dhamma Sharing Online, an initiative of the Buddhist Council of Malaysia and hosted by MSBS and DBV. It's certainly good to see all of you once again on this online platform. Today is the 27th of August 2023. We would like to wish all Malaysians a early happy Independence Day. To begin today's puja, I shall now invite Sister Doris to read out the offerings in English. Over to you, Sister Doris.
Thank you, Brother Terence. 𝓢𝓾𝓷𝓭𝓪𝓂, a very good morning to all brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Before we begin, let us calm our minds and reflect on the meaning of the virtual offerings that we shall make with full respect to our blessed teacher, the Buddha. Offering of lights. Let us offer these candles burning brightly out of deep respect and veneration to our enlightened master, the Buddha. May these lights symbolically guide us to the light of the Dhamma, which dispels the darkness of greed with the light of generosity, the gloominess of hatred with the light of love, and the darkness of ignorance with the light of wisdom through the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Offering of joss sticks and incense. Let us offer these joss sticks and incense out of deep respect and veneration to our blessed master, the Buddha. May the fragrance of these joss sticks and incense be pleasing unto the gods and devas. May our good deeds be like the fragrance of these joss sticks, cultivating compassion, patience, tolerance, understanding, and love toward all living things. Offering of water. Let us offer this water to symbolize our aspiration to cultivate the virtues of calmness, clarity, and purity. Let it remind us to diligently cleanse ourselves of our spiritual defilements and delusion through the cultivation of generosity, compassion, and wisdom. Offering of flowers. These flowers too we offer out of deep respect and gratitude to our compassionate master, the Buddha. These flowers, sweet, beautiful, and choice, are clustered at the feet of our noble master. Beautiful as they are now, they will soon, with passing of time, wilt and fade and be cast away. Reflecting thus on this very nature of unsatisfactoriness, impermanence, and soullessness, let us tread the path shown by Buddha for the removal of sufferings here and now. So let us start today's puja chanting by giving salutation to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha by saying sadhu 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata Vairamani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Adinna Dana Vairamani สิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิคาเมสุมิจฉาจาระเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิมุสาวาดาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิสุราเมรยมัจจาพมาดทานาเวรมณีสิกขาปดังสมาธิยามิอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจจาจารณสัมปันโนสุขโตโลกวิทูอนุตตโรปุริสดัมมสารติสัทธาเดวมนุสสานังบุตโธภะคะวาติสวากขาโตภะคะวัฏฐาธัมโมสันดิตถิโกอัคคาลิโกเอหิปัสสิโกโอปนายโกปัจจัตตังเวดิตัปโบวินยูหิติสุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆอุจุปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆญาญาปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสามีจิปฏิปันโนภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆยะติดังจัตถาริปุริสยุกานิอัตถาปุริสปุกกลาเอสาภะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆอาหุเนโยพาหุเนโยดักขิเนโยอัญจลิคารณีโยอนุตตรังปุญญเคตังโลกัสสาติ
ปันดามิเจติยังสัพบังสัพพตาเนสุปฏิติตังสารีริกดาตุมหาโบธิงบุตตรูปังสักลังสดายัสสมูเลนิสินโนวาสัพบาริวิจายังอากาปัตโตสัพปัญญุตังสัตตาวันเดตังโบธิปาดปังอิเมเอเตมหาโบธิโลกนาเตนะปูจิตาอะหังปิเตนะมัสสามิโพธิราชานามาตุเตกานสารับปดิตเตนะดีเปนะตามดังสินาติโลกดีปังสัมบุตดังปูจยามิตโมนุดังกันเดสัมบารายุตเตนะดูเปนะหังสุกันตินาปูจาเยปูจานิยังตังปูจาบาจานะมุตตะมังอดิวาเสตุโนบันเตปานิยังปาริกัปปิตังอนุกัมปังอุปาดายปฏิกันหาตุมุตตะมังอดิวาเสตุโนบันเตโบจานังปาริกัปปิตังอนุกัมปังอุปาดายปฏิกันหาตุมุตตะมังอาดิวาเสตุโนบันเตกิลานปัจฉยังอิมังอนุกัมปังอุปาดายปฏิกันหาตุมุตตะมังวันนกันดากุนุเปตัง Etang kusuma santating pujayami munindassa siripada sarorohe pujemi buddhang kusumena nena punnena mettena cahotu mokkang uppang milayati yata idang me kayo tatayati vinasa bawang akasatta ca bummatta dewa naga mahidika punyang tang anumoditwa cirang rakkantu loka sasanang akasatta ca bummatta dewa naga mahidika punyang tang anumoditwa cirang rakkantu desanang akasatta ca bummatta dewa naga mahidika punyang tang anumoditwa cirang rakkantu mang parangti devo vassatu kalena sassa sampatti hetu ca pito bhavatu loko ca raja bhavatu dhammiko idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame bante puripanya tathagata kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame dhamma sandittika akalika kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang accayang kamame sangha supatipanna anuttara
Karaneya matta kusalena yantang santang padang abhisamecca sakko uju ca suju ca suvaco ca semudu anatimani santus sakko ca subaro ca appakicco ca salau kevutti santindriyo ca nipako ca appagabbo kulesu ananugitto nachakudang samacari kenci yena vinyu pari upavadeyun sukino vake meno hontu sabbe sattha vavantu sukitatta ye kecipana buddhati tasava varava anavasesa digava ye mahantava Majjhima 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓷𝓫 va eva adittha ye ca dure vasanti avidure bhuta va sambhave siva sabbe sattha bhavantu sukhitatta naparo param nikubbeta nati manyeta katachinang kanchi biaro sana patigasanya nanya manya sadukka mitcheya matha yatha niyang puttang ayusa eka putta manurakke evam pisappa bhutesu manasambhavaye aparimanang mettang ca sabbalokas,min manasang bhavaye aparimanang buddhang ado ca tiriyan ca asambadang averang asampattang tithang carang nisinno va sayano va yavatatsa vigatamitto etang satim aditteya brahmamettang viharang idamahu ditting ca anupagamma silava dassanena sampanno hame suvinneya ketam nahi jatu gappaseyang punyareti etena satcha vaccena sotite hotu sappada etena satcha vaccena sotite hotu sappada etena satcha vaccena sotite hontu sappada. By this declaration of the truth, may you be saved at all times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much, Sister Doris, Sir May, and Brother 𝓤𝓾𝓷 for today's nice puja chanting. Today, Brother Ānanda Fong is sharing on a very important subject on the brief survey of the Nikayas. Nikayas are the Bibles of Buddhism. Over to you, Brother Ānanda.
Thank you, Brother friends. Let me start with the short puja. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. These days, in social media, websites, whether Buddhist or otherwise, we have seen a proliferation of what I would call fake Buddha posts. Whether the word Buddha is incorporated in the quotation or the quote is alleged from the Buddha with no specific location in the scriptures mentioned. So essentially, there's a lot of fake stuff in social media, and he has fooled many Buddhists also. And this is contributing, as the Buddha predicted, when fake teachings attributed to the Buddha appear, this will be the signature indication of the initiating the decline of the Dhamma as taught by the Buddha. And what did the Buddha have to say about misrepresenting or producing fake quotes? In this particular sutta, the Ābhāsita Sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya Book of 2, Sutta number 23, the Buddha said, monks, these two misrepresent the Buddha. What two? One who explains what is not spoken by the Buddha as spoken by him, and one who explains what was spoken by the Buddha as not spoken by him. These two misrepresent the Buddha. And these two don't misrepresent the Buddha. What two? One who explained what was not spoken by the Buddha as not spoken by him, and one who explained what was not spoken by the Buddha as spoken by him. These two don't misrepresent the Buddha. Now, with these quotes, we wonder, who is this Buddha we are talking about? Well, the qualities of the Buddha as enumerated in this particular sutta by the Buddha himself in the Maha Nama Sutta, Ānanda Nikaya, book of 11, Sutta number 12, the Buddha said that the Blessed One, or the Buddha, is perfected, a fully awakened Buddha, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and humans, awakened and blessed. So these are the 9 qualities declared by the Buddha of himself. And this particular sutta, the 2 suttas I quoted earlier, where do they come from? They come from the Tipitaka. T meaning 3, Pitaka meaning baskets. Now here, to elaborate a little bit more of the Tipitaka, also known as the Pali canon of the Theravada Buddhism. We're not talking about Mahayana Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism. Here in this particular channel, we are talking about Theravada Buddhism, and we essentially put our references to the Tipitaka, also known as the Pali canon. And why Pali canon? Because it has been handed down from the Buddha's time in the Pali language, or the text as spoken, or language spoken by the Buddha. So Buddhist teachings contained in the Tipitaka comprises of the Vinaya Pitaka, essentially the discipline for monastics. It also contains not just the discipline or precepts for the monastics, it contains many stories and descriptions of the various monastics, enlightened disciples in the Sangha during the Buddha's time, as well as the procedures for congregation, for making proclamations, and so on. So that is the Vinaya Pitaka. Sutta Pitaka, meaning discourses, or more one day, we might use the term lectures or teachings by the Buddha. These contain description initially of the person asking the question, could be a lay person, a monastic, the disciple of the Buddha, or the persons who want to refute the Buddha's teachings and having a discussion with the Buddha on certain topics. And of course, we have the third Pitaka, the Abhidhamma Pitaka, that of the higher doctrine. Essentially, in this particular Pitaka, there are no persons there, that means no named individuals. They are essentially an analysis, a breaking down of the human condition. What is this mind made of this? So it will be of interest to those interested in psychology. And the language of the Pitaka, as handed down since the first council, is that of Pali. And Pali itself just means the language of the Buddhist text. Now, knowing that the Buddha traversed a large portion of northern India, he spoke many dialects. And normally we refer to the dialect he mainly spoke as Magadhi. But he went to other countries like Kosala and many others, and almost certainly there were variations in this, in the various dialects and the Buddha used. Now, in the Sutta Pitaka, we come across this aspect in the Nikayas, the breakdown of the Sutta Pitaka, which we spend a lot of time because this contains the lectures of the Buddha. Hence, the title of this morning's sharing, a brief survey of the Nikayas. And why brief? Well, we'll cover that as we go to the descriptions of the various portions of the Nikayas. So the Sutta Pitaka consists of more than 10,000 suttas or discourses delivered by the Buddha and his close disciples during and shortly after the Buddha's 45-year teaching career, as well as many additional verses by other members of the Sangha. It contains these 5 collections or Nikayas. So Nikayas essentially mean collections. The Digha Nikaya, the word Digha means long because the lectures, each of the lectures are very long. Majjhima Nikaya, middle length discourses. Samyutta Nikaya, subject-wise collection. Anguttara Nikaya, numerically arranged. And the Khuddaka Nikaya, minor collection. Do note that the descriptions at the top of this page and so on have been courtesy of extracts from the Access to Insight website, where we managed to be able to learn the details of the suttas, the Nikayas, and the suttas translation, including the Pali version themselves. Now, into the Digha Nikaya. The Digha Nikaya, or collection of long discourses, is the first division of the Sutta Pitaka and contains 34 suttas, grouped into the 3 Vargas or divisions: the 𝓢𝓾𝓷𝓭𝓪 Varga, the Maha Varga, and the Patika Varga. At the bottom right, we have a what I call a collection, a printed collection published by Wisdom Publications, the long discourses of the Buddha. This is not the only printed version. There are many other translations by other competent translators and published elsewhere also. This is just an example. Now, well-known suttas from the Digha Nikaya. There's no way we can cover all 34. This is a very brief survey of some of the commonly known or well-known suttas from this particular Digha Nikaya. Now, well-known for lay people, 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓷 Sutta from the Sutta number 31 from the Digha Nikaya, hence the tracking number DN31. Now, with the mention of the Sutta name as well as the DN31, you can enter these details in your favorite search engine, and you can actually get a chance to read the Sutta in the language that you prefer, whether English, Pali, or otherwise. Essentially, the 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓷 Sutta, the description of this Sutta is the householder code of discipline as described by the Buddha to the lay person called Sigala. This Sutta offers valuable practical advice for householders on how to conduct themselves skillfully in their relationships with parents, spouses, children, pupils, teachers, employers, employees, friends, and spiritual mentors, so as to bring happiness to all concerned. The Maha Parinibbana Sutta, Sutta number DN16. Now, this wide-ranging sutta, the longest one in the Pali canon, describes the events leading up to, during, and immediately following the death or passing away or final release, the Parinibbana of the Buddha. This colorful narrative contains a wealth of Dhamma teachings, including the Buddha's final instructions that define how Buddhism would be lived and practiced long after the Buddha's death, even to this day. But this sutta also depicts, in simple language, the poignant human drama that unfolds among the Buddha's many devoted followers around the time of the death of their beloved teacher. Now, this page is an example of a poster designed from extracts from the 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓷 Sutta, DN31. And in the sutta, it describes who are your real friends. Do read the sutta in the full to get the benefit of this aspect of covered by the 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓷 Sutta. Now, continuing with the other suttas in the Digha Nikaya, Maha Satipatthana Sutta, DN22. Now, this sutta sets out the full formula for the practice of establishing mindfulness, and then gives an extensive account of one phrase in the formula, what it means to remain focused on any of the 4 frames of reference, the body, feelings, mind, and mental qualities in and of itself. Often translated, not just the 4 frames of reference, is also known as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Now, the Maha Nidana Sutta, DN15, one of the most profound discourses in the Pali canon, which gives an extended treatment of the teachings of dependent co-arising, paticca samuppada, and not self, anatta, in an outline context of how these teachings function in practice. This is another poster depicting the scene of the Maha Parinibbana, the great passing of the Buddha. And at the bottom of the page, you have the essential, the last teaching. Even lying there about to pass away, the Buddha was still teaching. And the last words mentioned by the Buddha, as recorded in the Maha Parinibbana Sutta, DN 16, is Vaya Dhamma Sankhara Apamadena Sampadeta. Translated, all compounded things are perishable. Strive with heedfulness. Now, here you will see a characteristic. Posters created depicting words of the Buddha, whether in Pali or just in English or any other language, should mention the source. That means where is it, whether it's from the sutta or any part of the Tipitaka, and giving is coding tracking number. In this case, in the Maha Parinibbana Sutta, the coding tracking notation is DN16. Those without, that mentions just Buddha, Gautama Buddha, depicts the laziness of the person, what they call, composing the poster, which from my experience, most of the time indicate, after checking the contents of the code, most frequently, I would say 99.99%, indicate that essentially it is a fake code. So now I have formed an opinion that whenever I see anybody code something and say it is from the Buddha, I will prejudge it as fake until proven correct. So it is important for those who want to make posters and share the Dhamma or parts of a particular sutta or quotation or what the Buddha said, to mention the sutta or the source and the tracking number. Now, moving on, the Majjhima Nikaya. Now, Majjhima Nikaya, or the middle-length discourses of the Buddha, is the second of the 5 Nikayas of the Sutta Pitaka. This Nikaya consists of 152 discourses by the Buddha and his chief disciples, which together constitute a comprehensive body of teaching concerning all aspects of the Buddha's teaching. And the bottom right again is a publication by Wisdom Publications on the English translation of the Majjhima Nikaya. Some well-known suttas from the Majjhima Nikaya include the Samaditthi Sutta, MN9. Now, how the Four Noble Truths, dependent co-arising, and knowledge that ends mental fermentation or mental defilements, all build upon the basic dichotomy between skillful and unskillful action. Now, incidentally, Samaditthi is made up of 2 words. Sama meaning perfect, complete. Ditthi means understanding. So this is a sutta on right understanding, the first aspect in the Noble Eightfold Path. The Maha 𝓷𝓾𝓷𝓷 Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 13, in deliciously graphic terms, the Buddha describes the allures and drawbacks of sensuality, physical form, and feeling. What better incentive could there be to escape samsara once and for all? The Saliyaka Sutta, MN 41, a discussion on 10 types of skillful and unskillful conduct in body, speech, and mind, and of the future rewards open to those who follow the guidelines for skillful conduct. Here is yet another sutta, the Ariya Pariyesana Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 26. And this poster is extracted, this quote is extracted from this sutta to answer the questions. Did the Buddha copy from other philosophies? Or was the Buddha a messenger of God, which some other philosophies claim that he is? And clearly the Buddha says, I have no teacher. So clearly he did not do all those things. And I leave it to you to go through this poster or read the sutta in toto. Now, well-known suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya continues. The Abhaya Sutta, MN 58. The Buddha explains the criteria for determining whether or not something is worth saying. Now, this discourse is a beautiful example of the Buddha's skill as teacher. not only does he talk about right speech, but he also demonstrates right speech in action. And the word abhaya, B-H-A-Y-A, means danger or fear. Abhaya means no danger or fearless. So this sutta was literally delivered to a non-Buddhist, in fact, a Jain who had arrangement with his own teacher to try to ambush the Buddha in a knotted by giving a knotted question. A knotted question is a question in which it is designed that if you say yes to the question, you will be caught. If you say no, you'll be caught. If you say you do not know, you are also caught. So it's designed so that you have no way out to answer this question. But the Buddha found a way to answer and skillfully demonstrated the aspects of right speech. The 𝓤𝓷𝓷𝓭𝓪 𝓟𝓭𝓪��� Sutta, MN 61. The Buddha admonishes his son, the novice Rahula, on the dangers of lying and stresses the importance of constant reflection on one's motives. Now, Rahula, this sutta was delivered to young Rahula when he was about 7 years old, hence the term novice Rahula. Now, this is one of the suttas selected by King Ashoka around the year 270 to 232 before Common Era, to be studied and reflected upon frequently by all practicing Buddhists. That means this includes monastic as well as the lay people. And here is an extract from this particular sutta in which the Buddha talks about that we should check our actions of body, speech, and mind repeatedly. Now, here in this particular sutta, which actually helps us to, gives advice to even us, not just a 7-year-old, but even adults, on how to practice this. And the key term is that when you want to, you must go through certain analysis of your intentions before you put it into action, while you are doing it, and after you have performed these physical actions that you should evaluate. And of course, if you conclude that they are unskillful, you should give up doing this completely, preferably by not doing it. And while you're doing it, if you find out that it's very unskillful, then you should stop immediately. And if you have already done it, that you should check and make sure you don't do it again, of course. And of course, if you find that it is skillful, please proceed, and so on. So this is an important tool in which it helps us to practice things as simple as the 5 precepts. Now, coming to the Samyutta Nikaya, this is the 3rd division of the Sutta Pitaka and contains 2,889 suttas, grouped into 5 sections or vargas. Each varga is further divided into Samyuttas, each of which in turn contains a group of suttas on related topics. Now, the Samyuttas are named according to the topics of the suttas they contain. So, for example, the Kosala Samyutta in the Sagata Varga contains suttas concerning King Pasenadi of Kosala. He has been visiting when the Buddha was in the Jetavada monastery. King Pasenadi of Kosala frequently visited the Buddha and asked the Buddha some questions, and they have been recorded inside this Kosala Samyutta. Now, continuing, the Vedana Samyutta in the Salayatana Varga contains suttas concerning feeling, Vedana, and so on. And the bottom right is the cover of the recent publication of this Samyutta Nikaya, translated into English. Well-known suttas from the Samyutta Nikaya include the Dajjaga Sutta, SN 11.3. Now, are you ever overcome by fear? The Buddha offers an antidote. In the way, Dajjaga Sutta is a crest of the banner. When you go into battle against the defilements, you need to show your flag that you want to charge against these defilements, to overcome them, and so on. So the Buddha uses the analogy of war in this particular sutta also. Paticca Samuppada Vibhanga Sutta. Whenever you see the word Vibhanga, it means analysis. So this is from SN 12.2, analysis of dependent co-arising, a summary of the causal chain of dependent co-arising. 𝓢𝓾𝓷𝓭𝓪𝓂 Sutta, SN 12.19. What is the difference between a fool and a wise person? Bala being a fool, Pandita means a wise person. And of course, the most famous sutta, most important as far as the Buddhist world is concerned, is the first sermon, the 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓷 Sutta, SN 56.11. This is the Buddha's first discourse, delivered shortly after his awakening to the group of Panchavagya, the 5 ascetics, with whom he had practiced austerities in the forest for many years. The sutta contains the essential teachings of the 4 Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. Upon hearing this discourse, the monk Kondanya attains the first stage of awakening, thus giving birth to the Arya Sangha, the Noble Sangha. This is a poster extracted from a verse in the 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓷 Sutta on how the Buddha defines the word dukkha, frequently translated in other translation as suffering. But it is not just suffering. Here the Buddha goes through birth is dukkha, aging is dukkha, death is dukkha, and so on. And over here, we have the Buddha talking about friends, good friends, admirable companionship, admirable camaraderie is actually the whole of the holy life. Now, when a monk has admirable people as friends and companions or comrades, he can be expected to develop and pursue the Noble Eightfold Path. And this is in the Upada Sutta, SN 45.2. Now, although this particular verse applies, or this sutta applies to the monastic, but you can also take a message from this sutta to the lay people, that a lay person who has admirable people as friends, companions, and comrades can be expected also to develop and pursue the Noble Eightfold Path. It means we lay people need to have good friends that encourage each other, to highlight to us when we are lax in our mindfulness and so on, to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, so that we can attain to lead a holy life, even as a layperson. Now, moving on to the Ānguttara Nikaya, the 4th division of the Sutta Pitaka consists of several thousand suttas, arranged in 11 books, nipatas, covering according to numerical content. For example, the first nipata, the Book of Ones, contains suttas concerning a single topic. The second nipata, the Book of Twos, contains suttas concerning pairs of things, and so on. And the bottom right again, a cover of the wisdom publication of the Ānguttara Nikaya. Now, some suttas from the Ānguttara Nikaya. The most well-known, especially in the Western world, is the Kalama Sutta, AN 3.65. The Buddha here explains to a group of skeptics the proper criteria for accepting a spiritual teaching. Although here the Venerable Thanissaro Bhikkhu in the Access to Insight mentions this, the Kalama Sutta not only gives a criteria for of rejecting and accepting spiritual teaching. The sutta actually, if you read it in total, read it completely, it also teaches you, teaches the Kalama people how to practice, how to develop the Brahma Vihara meditation. So you have meditation instructions also in the Kalama Sutta. And of course, towards the end of the Kalama Sutta, the Buddha talks about the skeptic's view of whether there is karma and rebirth or there is none, and whether it is advantageous for one to still practice the Dhamma. Samadhi Sutta, AN 5.27. The Buddha encourages the practice of Brahma Vihara, or sublime states of Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekkha. Metta being loving kindness, Karuna being compassion, Mudita being appreciative joy, Upekkha meaning equanimity, as a basis for concentration practice, as it leads to the 5 important realizations. Dana Sutta, the 6 factors with which to make the most of giving. this Dana Sutta from AN 6.37. Now, in the Ānanda Nikaya, as and elsewhere in the whole of the Tipitaka, especially the Sutta Pitaka, there are many suttas in which the Buddha addresses different aspects of dana. Dana means giving. They have aspects on the mental, your mental makeup before you give, while you're giving, after you're giving, what you should be giving, when you should give, to whom you should be giving, and so on. So this particular sutta is only one aspect of it, and yet there are many other suttas describing the aspect of dana, which the Buddha encourages us to practice. Dhamma-savana Sutta, AN 5.202. The 5 rewards in listening to the Dhamma is described in this particular sutta. Ita Sutta, AN 5.43. The Buddha explains to Anathapindika, a millionaire who helped to buy the land and build Jetavana Monastery, on how true happiness can never be achieved merely by wishing for it. This particular sutta is very important because the Buddha emphasizes the importance of practice over mere wishing or prayers. So prayers are here addressed by the Buddha as taking the background. That means not as important as practicing the Dhamma. And for those practicing metta bhavana, that means loving kindness meditation, this particular sutta, Metta Nisamsa Sutta, Ānanda Nikaya, Book of 11, Sutta number 16, the 11 benefits arising from the practice of metta or loving kindness or goodwill meditation. Here on this page, you have a poster from the extract from the Katanyu Sutta, gratitude. Katanyu means gratitude. Ānanda Nikaya, Sutta number 2, Sutta number 31 and 32, when the Buddha addresses some aspects of gratitude being very important in our practice. And in this particular poster, the Ita Sutta, here the Buddha addresses the longings or desires of most people, that we want long life, beauty, fame, acclaim, heaven, birth in high families, lofty delights, and so on. But the important thing is the wise praise heedfulness in doing deeds of merit. So the emphasis is on doing deeds. Okay, so be heedful. The wise person secures both kinds of good, the good in this life and the good of the future life. By attaining the good, the steadfast one is called one of wisdom, and so on. Do read the whole sutta for the full message by the Buddha. And in this particular page, the 11 benefits of developing loving kindness, Metta Nisamsa Sutta, Ānanda Nikaya, Book of 11. Here, the 11 are listed, and the first 3 is very important. He sleeps in comfort, he awakes in comfort, he sees no evil dreams, and so on. Many people nowadays have insomnia or have difficulty sleeping, and this one antidote to those problems would be to develop loving kindness meditation, and you will get these kinds of benefits. Khuddaka Nikaya, collection of little texts. The 5th division of the Sutta Pitaka is a wide-ranging collection of 15 books, not just suttas contained in it, they contain books. So there are 15 books and 18 in the Myanmar or Burmese Tipitaka, containing complete suttas, verses, and smaller fragments of Dhamma teachings. Some well-known books in this Nikaya are the Dhammapada, often quoted by various speakers and various websites. Sutta Nipata, less well-known as a collection, but very often the suttas are quoted from there. Theragatha, hymns or poems of the monks. Therigatha, hymns or poems of the nuns. Iti Vutaka, Udana, and so on. The bottom right publication from Wisdom Publications is that of Sutta Nipata. Okay, there's no one publication for the 𝓤𝓷𝓭𝓪𝓂, but of the various books by themselves. Now, well-known suttas from the 𝓤𝓷𝓭𝓪𝓂, the Maha Mangala Sutta from the Sutta Nipata, Sutta number 2.4, a remuneration of the 38 blessings that result from leading a skillful life. Very often we chant the Ratana Sutta from the Sutta Nipata, Sutta number 2.1. The Buddha enumerates the many treasures to be found within the Triple Gem. And just now we recited the Karaniya Metta Sutta. There are two versions. This one version is from the Sutta Nipata, Sutta number 1.8. The practice of developing universal goodwill, the practices that form a foundation for the practice, the attitude of universal goodwill itself, and the steps that lead from goodwill to awakening. Dhammapada is essentially a collection of 423 short verses. 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓷, a collection of 112 short suttas or lectures in mixed prose and verse form, each of which addresses a single well-focused topic of Dhamma. The 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓭 takes its name from the Pali phrase that introduces each sutta. Iti Vutang Bhagavata, thus was said by the Buddha. Now here is a poster with extracted from the Karaniya Metta Sutta, where it talks about even as a mother would protect with her life her child, her only child, so too for all creatures unfold a boundless heart with love for the whole world, unfold a boundless heart above, below, all around, constricted, without enemy or foe. And here is an extract from a sutta from the 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓭, Sutta number 1.22. The Buddha advises that we should train in acts of merit or punya that bring long-lasting bliss. Develop giving or dana, a life in tune, a life of goodwill. Developing these three things of giving, self-control, and restraint that bring about bliss, the wise reappear in the world of bliss unalloyed. And here is a poster created from a quote from Venerable 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷𝓫, extracted from the 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷. The Dhamma protects those who live by the Dhamma. The Dhamma well practiced brings bliss. This, the reward when the Dhamma is well practiced. One who lives by the Dhamma doesn't go to a bad destination. For Dhamma and non don't bear equal results. Non-Dhamma leads you to hell. Dhamma to a good destination. Now, after going through the Sutta Pitaka and all its Nikayas with examples of suttas, we are wondering, how do we assess or reach these resources? Well, we have soft resources comprising web-based applications or apps and so on, and hard resources via books, CDs, DVDs, and visiting the friendly Buddhist library. And the bottom, you have print screens from various websites that provide soft resources that some of you may already be using. And of course, here we have the cover pages of the wisdom publication of the various Nikayas. And the top right is of interest. I will elaborate that in a little while. Now, going to the soft resources, access to insight, which the earlier description of the various Nikayas were extracted from. The site is comprehensive and apart from articles from many well-known authors and study guides pointing to various sections of the Nikayas, the availability of Nikaya content in English and the language of the canon text, it means Pali itself, allows for a more comprehensive study, especially when different translators give differing English renderings from the Pali. Now, the left portion, the middle left portion, shows the landing page of this particular website, and the bottom indicates how you can access the Pali from any particular sutta. Now, here is an example of the Mangala Sutta, the introduction portion. And the earlier Mangala Sutta quoted in earlier slides mentioned Sutta Nipata. Here is from another section of the Khuddaka Nikaya, which also contains the Sutta Nipata, contains the Maha Mangala Sutta. Here is extracted from the Mangala Sutta. Now, we are very familiar with the left portion, the English portion, thus have I heard, and so on. And on the right, here, Evang Me Sutang, as recited by Venerable Ānanda during the first council, translated as thus have I heard. Bhagava, meaning the exalted one or the blessed one, and Arame, meaning the monastery. And the English translation of deity here in Pali is Devata or Devas. There are no gods in the Indian what they call cosmology. It is just deities, living beings in other planes of existence. And these class of beings are called in English deities or devas. And of course, this way in the Mangala Sutta, the question was posed to the Buddha by these non-humans, these devas, who visited the Jetavana Grove late in the night. And when they came, they illuminated, because the word deva means luminous ones. So Obasetva, it means illuminated. And having come, they respectfully saluted. Abhi Vadetva. Abhi means higher or respectfully. Vadetva meaning to pay homage. And stood to one side. Ekamantam Attasi. And in verse, Gathaya. And many others. So all these can be extracted from the access to insight, where you have access to the Palis also. And here is yet another poster extracted from the 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓭𝓪 Sutta, the sutta found in Samyutta Nikaya SN 56.11, where the first sermon given by the Buddha, where the Buddha declares that this is the noble truth of suffering, and so on. And the important portion is the last two lines. My freedom is unshakable. This is my last rebirth. Now, there is no more future lives. So the question posed by some people, where is the Buddha now, has been answered by the Buddha in this particular sutta. Other soft resources, including BuddhaNet, an Australian website. BuddhaNet is a non-sectarian organization offering its services to all Buddhist traditions. The BuddhaNet is administered by Venerable Panyavaro and dedicated team of lay volunteers from the Bowie Tree Forest Monastery and Retreat Center in northern North South Wales in Australia. Now, BuddhaNet is a not-for-profit service supported entirely by users' donations and so on. Interestingly, at the bottom of this page, you have a poster or a print screen mentioning Buddhist studies. For those who want to set up Sunday Dhamma school or Dhamma schools in general, whether it's on Sunday or other days, there are pages here, and this is one of those pages that it may be used for primary and secondary students. So those who want resources, they are offered by BuddhaNet. Sutta Central. Here, the print screens here are a little bit old, but Sutta Central aims at facilitating the study of Buddhist texts from comparative and historical perspective. It focuses on the texts that represent early Buddhism texts, preserved not only in the Pali Sutta and Vinaya Pitaka, but also the Chinese and Tibetan translations, and in fragmentary remain in Sanskrit and other languages. Now, Sutta Central offers a gateway to this material by enabling users to quickly identify the Chinese, Tibetan, and or Sanskrit parallels of any given Pali discourses and vice versa. Now, this Sutta Central, not only for those who are mainly English-speaking and want to refer to the Pali, you can set the screen whereby a sutta is 100% giving the sutta in English, or line by line or word by word and so on. Various options are available for you to set on the website setting page to display English, then Pali, and so on. And if you highlight any particular Pali word, it gives you the the dictionary definition of those Pali terms also. So it's great for studies. Now, the digital Pali reader. Now, DPR is a tool in the form of the Mozilla Firefox extension. Note, it is not a website, it's an extension, something you add on to this particular Firefox browser, much like a hard copy language reader, facilitating study of the Pali language at an advanced level. Rather than offering a translation for the text being read, a reader usually includes a dictionary with all the difficult words found in the reader. And of course, number 5 at the bottom, web search engine. Now, the explosion in information has necessitated the use of various web search engines that helps users find what they need. Web search engines are soft systems that is designed to search for information on the World Wide Web. A word of warning, web search engines do not know whether this location or this website is suitable for you. So depending on how you put the question on the page, it might spew a lot of rubbish and non-Dhamma aspect, because similar words may be used in non-Dhamma settings. So your wisdom and scrutiny is needed to identify the results given by such web search engines. And of course, a lot of people have relied on other soft resources like the audio and video via podcasts and YouTube and so on. So many Dhamma talks freely available on YouTube or from various websites. Example, the www.vbg.net.org, which is the home of the Vihara Buddha 𝓤𝓾𝓷𝓭𝓪 at 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓼𝓷 in Malaysia, and makes available talks by Ayasma or Venerable the late Venerable Dhamma-Vuddo Maha 𝓤𝓷𝓷. And other locations also have audio talks by Ayasma Agajita Maha 𝓤𝓷𝓷, Ayasma Kumara Bhikkhu from Satipatthana Buddhist Sanctuary, or SBS Taiping Perak. So you can also visit the websites by Satipatthana and so on. Now, we also have applications or software apps for your smartphones, whether iOS platform, Android, or other platforms, and they are widespread, and some require payment while some are free. Suitability of use is a personal decision. So I have some Pali English dictionaries installed on my phone also. Now, here is yet another poster illustrating the Dhammapada verse 24. Ever grows the glory of one who is energetic, mindful, and pure in conduct, discerning and well-controlled, righteous and heedful. Again, I emphasize that any extract, any poster created should quote the source of this particular Buddha quote, and where one may verify it if they should choose to do so. Hard resources. Now, the venerable hard resources which many people have relied on include those by the Tipitaka published by the Pali Text Society, London. Okay, the society was founded in 1881 by Professor T.W. Rhys Davies in London, and it functions till today, and you can purchase these volumes. Now, the picture shows here the maroon hardcover copies, very well produced, high quality. These are the English translation, and many of these translations are very, very dated. Many of them are before 1950s. Those with gray color hardcover volumes are those in Pali. Okay, so many venerable or established Buddhist libraries will contain full sets of these Pali Text Society publications. And of course, I have already mentioned wisdom publications. The full text is given. Not all the discourses here have been translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Like for instance, the left green cover, the Nikayas, was translated or published here by Robert Walsh. Many of the others are what they call edited translations by Bhikkhu Nyanamoli and other learned monastics. And the Bhikkhu Bodhi has come here to re-edit some of these translations and republish them, and so on. Now, of course, some of us still like to hold a hard copy in our hands and cannot and don't have the resources to purchase all the Buddhist book that you would want to refer to. So a visit to your nearest good Buddhist library is very important. Here is just a short list. The 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷 library, originally on the first floor of Wisma 𝓤𝓷𝓲. We had to check with Buddhist Maha whether this 𝓤𝓷𝓲𝓷 library is still operational because of renovation works at this particular Wisma 𝓤𝓷𝓲. Utama Bohi Vihara Library, operated by Banda Utama Buddhist Society, is also noteworthy for those who are staying around Banda Utama or that portion of Petaling Jaya. The 𝓤𝓷𝓷𝓷𝓪 Memorial Library from in Mahindarama Buddhist Temple, Georgetown, Penang, is a very, very comprehensive library. And Pustaka Nalanda at Sri Sedang, in the southern portion of Selangor, is also what they call well stocked with library materials, as well as the Tipitaka. And in the end, after going through all these what they call Tipitaka, the Nikayas, and some people might be wondering, why Buddhism? What does Buddhism teach? We go back to the age-old question. And here, the picture showed an artistic rendition showing the Buddha giving an exhortation or encouraging the first 60 arahats to go and teach, go out and teach. And here, this quotation recorded in the Vinaya Pitaka, the Buddha said, "Go monks on tour for the benefit of the common folk, the happiness of the common folk, out of compassion for the world, for the welfare, the benefit and happiness of gods and human beings." So clearly, Buddhism, or the teaching by the Buddha, the Dhamma Vinaya of the Buddha, is for our benefit, for our happiness, for our welfare. So if you value these, then do check out the Dhamma Vinaya as taught by the Buddha, as contained in the Tipitaka. And here is yet another quote from Dhammapada verse 183. Dhammapada, as I mentioned, is from the Khuddaka Nikaya. Sabba papasa akaranang kusalasa upasampada sacitta paridapana etang buddhana sasana. That we should avoid all evil. We should do good, purify our minds. This is a teaching of the Buddhas. So there are a lot of gems in the Dhammapada collection. And this particular one is of importance because many people have problem describing what the Buddha taught to their what they call non-Buddhist friends or those less knowledgeable in the Dhamma. And this easily summarizes the teaching of the Buddha as quoted from the Dhammapada by the Buddha himself. So that was a brief, emphasis is on brief survey of the Nikayas. Do explore the many questions posed to the Buddha or to the enlightened chief disciples of the Buddha and have it answered as recorded in the Nikayas in the Pitaka. So with that, Saddhammo Cirang Ditatu. May the good doctrine long endure. Sabbe Satta Sukhi Hontu. May all beings be happy. That's the end of this morning sharing from me. Over back to you, Brother Terence.
Thank you, Brother Ānanda, for today's nice sharing. It's indeed very important that Buddhists learn and study the Nikayas thoroughly. Okay, now let us dedicate some merits to all beings, whether they are seen and unseen. Akasata cha bummata deva naga mahitika Punyang tam anumoditva chiram rakkantu lokasāsanang ettavata ca amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva sabbe bhuta sabbe sattha anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. And aspirations. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you everyone for watching. For other videos, please go to the link below. Bye bye for now.